and welcome to the DDD Virtual Desert Food Tour. I'm Professor Simon Barak, and I'm here with the co-presenter, my colleague and friend, Professor Naftali Lazarovich. Naftali is the director, and I'm a member of the French Associates Institute for Agriculture and Biotechnology of Drylands at the Jacob Blaustein Institutes for Desert Research on the Steboka campus of Ben Gurion University. Hi, Naftali. In Israel,
Hi.
Of course. Naftali, exactly. Naftali, do you want to just give a quick brief overview of what we're going to be seeing today?
What we're going to see is 11 movies coming from all over the Negev, from researchers from the Negev, 11 researchers that gave us a 3-4 minutes movie. And after the movie, we will have some possibilities for questions and answers. We can use the chat, or you can talk with the participants that they are here. And we will move like this in the next 1.5 hours. And I hope that it will be fun.
I hope so. I hope so too. So thanks, Naftali. And so just to put the production of desert food into context, I just want to start with the graph that, Naftali, if you can go to the next slide. Okay, something that you've all seen many, many times before. And if you were in the lecture yesterday, the plenary lecture of the Ben Gurion University President, Professor Danny Chamovitz, you would have seen this as well. Pedro says that he is hearing an echo. Pedro, if you want to close your application, close your browser, you probably won't get an echo.
Please, all of you, close your browser. Maybe it's Internet Explorer, maybe it's Google Chrome. Just close it, and then you stay only with the Zoom.
Yeah, of course, those people who are in Zoom, not those people who are outside the Zoom. Okay, so you probably, as I said, you probably saw this graph yesterday, Professor Chamovitz's lecture, that shows the human population growth that is expected to reach over 9 billion by 2050, and that we need to increase our food production by between 50 and 70%, which of course is huge. And Professor Chamovitz also showed, can you go to the next slide, Naftali? Good, yeah. Professor Chamovitz also showed that we have a problem as well with the amount of land declining in agriculture. So you can see in this graph that from the 1950s up to the mid-90s, we had increased global amounts of land being used for agriculture, being brought into cultivation. And then you can see that there was a plateauing of this and then a gradual decline. And this was because of many factors that he pointed out, including desertification and urbanization and scarcity of water resources and climate change. And I probably missed some out, Naftali.
Oh, it's just that to say that the limited land per capita today for sustainable food production is only 2,000 square meters. You need 2,000 square meters to produce your food. And in the industrialized countries, we are above this limit. But in the non-industrialized countries, we are already below, and the projected for the 2050 that we will be well below this limit. And it means that it will be hard to produce food in agricultural land. Not enough agricultural land.
Right, and also the amount of yield that we can get per, or the increases in yield that we can get per hectare or per acre is actually reaching some kind of biological limit. So we have a big problem, and much of the land that's left that has the potential for agriculture is situated in areas such as in the yellow, which are in harsh environments. In the yellow, we have arid lands. And of course, these lands are characterized by very harsh environmental stresses, such as drought and heat and high light intensities, saline soils and nutrient poor soils. And so this is not conducive to the production of many of our crops. And so we have to find ways of making crops both more tolerant to these conditions and also to find the agro techniques that will allow us to grow crops in these areas. Now, of course, to grow these crops in these areas, we still need to use that very scarce water, that scarce resource, and that is water. We need to irrigate them.
Just to mention, Simon, that additionally to those problems that you mentioned, they will be compounded by increasing salinization, sodification of soils due to wrong irrigation practices, global warming, of course, and desertification going to be serious problems in the future.
Absolutely. So if we go to the next slide, if we're going to need to irrigate these crops, you can see that in our area, we have very variable rainfall. You can see in the north, we have up to 1,000 millimeters of water. And as we come down into the northern Negev, we have about 100 millimeters of water. And as we go further south, we have as low as 30 millimeters of rainfall annually. And this rainfall is not all year either. It's concentrated in just a few months from December to around February. Now, we also have our main natural water sources for irrigation are the Kinneret, the Sea of Galilee. And in the 1960s, the national water carrier was built to bring water down into the Negev. A much less proportion of this is being used nowadays. We have the coastal aquifer and we have the mountain aquifer. And you can see that around only 20% of the water is in the south, and yet 65% of the irrigable land is in the south. Now, in addition to our natural water resources, we also have other sources. Israel in the last years has built desalination plants, which have gone a long way to solving Israel's water problems. And we also have vast reservoirs under the desert of brackish water. Naftali, have I missed out anything here?
Yeah, we have the recycled water.
The recycled water.
In agriculture. It's not the best water, but after some purification, we can use this water. Of course, we can use the saline water beneath us, but those contains high level of salts, and that can be a problem for most of the crops.
Exactly. And of course, there are technologies as well to save water, such as drip irrigation technology. So if we can go to the next slide. So what are the keys then to producing desert food? Of course, we have our amazing farmers and growers, and at the end of the session, I'll say a few words about them. But just as Professor Chamovitz said yesterday, we have to have research, we have to have both basic research and applied research, biological research, biotechnology research, and applied agricultural research, together with technology and the extension services who themselves do many applied agricultural experiments, together with the extension services who can help the growers implement new research, new technology, and new agro techniques. So that's, yes. Naftali?
So indeed, we need people, but we need also investment that's coming from the companies around us, investment from governments. It's not only the people that's going to do the work. We need a lot of money to do good research and to have new technologies.
Exactly. So Naftali, I think it is time to open our restaurant so that we can give everybody some of the amazing produce that is coming out of the Negev desert. And Naftali, I asked you in the last few days to actually name our desert restaurant that we're going to be providing all this food. So what have you come up with?
Look, I think about the desert and I think about something really dry, something that remind me dry desert. So I thought that it will be dehydrated ibex.
So is this actually looks like one of the customers that's going to come out of the dehydrated ibex? Nafta, I think you've got to do better than that. That's a terrible name. You've got to have something else.
It's not a good idea, huh, Simon?
No. Don't like that name.
Maybe something really empty. Yes, the desert is empty or far away. Maybe we'll call it the desolated waterhole.
The desolate waterhole. Naftali, that looks like hell on earth. I don't think anybody wants to go into a restaurant where they're going to feel desolation. You've got to have something else. Come on.
Okay, so maybe we'll go to the good things that we find in the desert. Yes, okay. Sometimes we find good memories, or sometimes we found water. So maybe we call it the last oasis.
I love that. I love that. The last oasis. The only problem is, I think we have to change the logo because although we love the 90s band Oasis, I think you got to do better than that. Come on.
Okay, so let's go for the Engedi Oasis.
This is beautiful. The last oasis. I love it. Well done, Naftali. That's a great name. So, Naftali, what is the menu that we have prepared to serve at the last oasis restaurant?
So we have a name, and now we have a menu. We have a menu that comprises from main dishes, sides, drinks, and desserts that all of them came from researchers from our institutes in the Negev, from Ben Gurion University, from Gilat Research Center, from Ramat Negev, and also from the Arava R&D Center.
Fantastic. So what have you got on the menu? Let's go through. Let's see what we've got. Okay,
so we have crispy pan-fried fish for a main dish, and also al-galafel, which is a falafel that is made from algae. So this is a vegan dish.
So that's fantastic because, you know, I emigrated originally to Israel from Britain, so I love a nice plate of fish and chips. And of course, anything that's vegan, that's a huge trend in the world, and of course, huge in Israel. So that's great. What have we got for our sides?
So sides, we have the chopped Israeli salad. Israelis are known with their vegetables, and we will eat even vegetables in the morning. Sounds crazy, but that's what we are doing every morning almost.
Yeah, I remember the shock of when I first came to Israel having salad in the morning. It was shocking.
We have the sibin salad made of salicornia. This is a very interesting plant that can, it's a halophyte. So we will hear about it later on, but now we can even taste the sibin salad.
So this is like that vegetable that's very, very salty that you can either put on fresh or you can fry it, or you can, I believe you can even dry it and grind it and have it as a sort of a natural salt full of minerals as well.
Yeah, sometimes it's called the sea asparagus or something like this. Yeah, and then we are in the Middle East. We need to eat some pita and olive oil. This is delicious. It's a side, and we like to do it from time to time.
Excellent. And what do we have for drinks? Oh, no, we've got some, yeah.
No, I think we ate enough. Now we need to drink something. Orange juice that's coming from wonderful orange groves that we have in the Negev.
So, of course, Israel was very famous for Jaffa oranges in the 60s and 70s, and now we're talking about having oranges coming out of the desert. So this is going to be a really interesting one.
Sure. I grew up in Rehovot, and near my house, eventually walking to my high school was a lot of orange groves. Today you cannot find them in Rehovot, and you can find them in the Negev.
A great example of urbanization, huh?
Yeah. Red or white wine. This is excellent. We need some alcohol, yeah? Be happy.
And what do we got for dessert?
Dessert, we have the pink dragon fruit cake made from pitaya. Pitaya, it's a crop that is grown in the Negev. Actually, it's a cactus, and it has delicious fruits.
Fantastic. And I can see that rounding everything off to help us digest our food is a nice herbal tea.
Yeah, herbal tea is excellent. We have many, many plants out there in the Negev, and some of them will give us excellent tea.
Excellent. So that's fantastic. So just for people who are not here physically where we are, you can see in the background the village of Midreshet Ben Gurion. And Naftali, if you can just put your cursor over the Jacob Blaustein Institutes for Desert Research. This is also where, in this village, is where our first Prime Minister, David Ben Gurion, is buried. And you can see that it's overlooking the spectacular wilderness of Zin and showing all these incredibly harsh desert conditions that we have to try and grow food in. So everybody...
Did you know that this valley is mentioned in the Bible?
I do indeed.
It's the same valley, but it's mentioned in the Bible.
I do indeed, yes. It's meant to be where Moses and the children of Israel wandered, right?
Maybe.
So as Naftali said, what we're going to do, what we're going to do is we're going to see movies now of the different researchers, clips of the researchers. Please feel free to ask questions, to write questions either in the chat of the Zoom Or if you're watching from outside the Zoom, if you look at the bottom of the video, you should see a window there where you can write in a question. And we're very honored, of course, to have some of the researchers here who will be able to and happy to answer your questions. So, Naftali,
the two main one will come from aquaculture, both fish and algae. Aquaculture will definitely be one of the important sources of proteins and also many other novel chemicals. So both Dina now and Sami Busiba are working on aquaculture.
So we have Professor Dina Zilberg, who's going to be providing us with our crispy, or at least helping to provide the crispy pan-fried fish. Professor Dina Zilberg from the Jacob Blaustein Institutes for Desert Research. She has an amazing lab which tries to look for natural remedies for fish health, particularly in fish farms, and she has many other really interesting projects. So why don't we go straight to the first movie, Naftali?
Okay.
Hello, my name is Dina Zilberg. I'm a researcher in the field of fish health. Our laboratory combines research with focus on practical research with fish health consultancy services and diagnostic services to local aquaculture farms. Our research focuses on several topics, but one theme that has been going with us since actually this lab has opened is the development of natural plant-based treatments against diseases of fish, and this is as a substitute to the toxic antibiotics and mainly chemicals, very few chemicals that are allowed for the treatment of fish diseases and very toxic ones, such as formalin. Our current research actually combines the use of microalgae for the treatment of a worm, of a flatworm that infects fish, and this worm was treated until recently with organophosphates that are no longer allowed to be used. We use an extract from a specific algae, a diatom, that is very effective against this worm and is not harming the fish. In the past, we also studied rosemary as a treatment for a bacterial disease, streptococcosis in fish. Another topic of research that I actually got involved in quite accidentally is the culture of fish in treated wastewater. This study started off from a different angle. In the nearby town of Yerucham, they have an artificial lake that is fed with treated wastewater from the city of Yerucham, also some flood water, but all year round it gets water from their treated wastewater treatment, from their wastewater treatment plant. This lake is stocked with fish, and actually people are regularly fishing and eating the fish from this lake. So the original thought was that this could be very problematic and that we'll find many bad things, diseases in those fish. So we did a big survey and we sampled many fish from that lake and actually found that everything was fine with them. So we switched our idea and went into researching the production and the culture of fish in treated wastewater. The fish grew very well in those water. They appeared very healthy. In the end, we sampled those fish and we sent them to the laboratory for the analysis of our national laboratory for the analysis of live food in terms of several set contaminants that are being routinely analyzed in all the food that we receive. And they were actually found to stand those standards. So basically our research showed this potential, which we think should be further investigated and possibly implemented due to the large amount of treated wastewater that we have in this country. And we have a few more studies that I won't get into today, but the main theme of our research is to produce fish in a sustainable way, using sustainable resources, not contaminating the environment. We very much focus on things that can also be done in the desert environment. And hopefully we can increase the production of fish in that way that is so much needed due to the very high increase in the demand of fish for food in this country, but actually all around the world.
Simon.
Yeah.
So what do you think about fish that are going inside wastewater? Sounds interesting.
Yeah, well, if Dina says they're okay to eat, I'm happy having that plate of fish and chips. Naftali, do we have any questions from outside? If not, I have a question for Dina.
Sure, let's ask Dina.
Hi.
So Dina, hi, yeah. Dina, how are you? Dina, I wanted to ask you, I know that that you have another amazing project that you didn't manage to talk about in the movie, which is the aquaponics project that you have with Professor Amit Gors, and I think Naftali also has been involved in this project. Can you tell us a little bit about this system, because it really is quite an amazing system?
Yeah, sure. So basically the idea of aquaponics, you know, that fish excrete ammonia is their nitrogenous waste product. Like this is basically their urine, and it is a very good nutrient for plants. So the idea is to use the waste of one part of the production as a resource of the other stage. And when combining fish production with plant production, the waste of the fish is nourishing the plants. And the plants are, by taking out this nutrient from the water, they are clearing the water, which goes back to the fish and they receive clear water. Actually, this system that was developed by Amit Gors is looking at closing completely the cycle and also utilizing any waste that is produced there. So the organic waste is used to produce energy that can run the system, and more additional nutrients that can go and nourish the plants. So basically it is closing the whole cycle for the water and all the ingredients that are grown there.
So you're using the effluent, the sludge from the fish actually to make both the nutrients and biogas that actually powers, and the plants to make biogas, so that actually powers the whole closed system.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, Amit does that. I must, my role is more the fish and the health and the treatments that can be applied to the fish and not harm the plants. Since it's a complex system, then everything that you add can affect all the different parts of it. It is a tricky system, but I think it is feasible, and it is being applied more and more in different, as large system, but even more as smaller farm-based.
Dina, I have a question regarding the health of the people that are eating fish that was gone inside those wastewater lakes. What about heavy metals or other microorganisms, viruses? I don't know whatever can be there. Is it found in the fish later on, or can you clean it away from the fish?
Right, so the things that you mentioned are the two things that are not found in the fish and that they are not a problem. Heavy metals are not there because heavy metals are removed in the sludge of the wastewater treatment. Bacteria and pathogens are not a problem. All of this water gets chlorinated or disinfected in the tertiary treatment. The thing that is a worry is the micropollutants, which includes antibiotics, hormones, other medicine. Depends what the town where the water comes from. So if there's small industries, so all these kinds of waste, these are not currently they are not routinely analyzed, but we compared the level of those contaminants to the levels that were reported in vegetables that are cultured in treated wastewater or that irrigated with treated wastewater, that you go in the supermarket and you don't even ask, what can this do to your health? And actually what we found that based on the literature, the levels in the fish are sometimes even smaller than the levels that were reported in tomatoes and in cucumbers. So it is definitely, so that's the worry. Heavy metals and bacteria are not a worry, but the micropollutants are a worry, that it is something that needs to start to be more regulated in all our foods, I think. And I believe that also there would be, you know, for the things that will be found to be problematic, the treatment of the water maybe can be a bit better to remove them.
Okay, thank you very much, Dina. We will move for the next presenter that will
Thanks
give
for my
us
fish and chips, Dina.
The alga falafel.
Okay, so we've got our alga falafel coming up. So we're going to hear now from Professor Sami Busiba, also from the Jacob Blaustein Institutes for Desert Research. Sami has been running for years the Microalgae Biotechnology Lab, and has really been a pioneer in using and growing algae in the desert, particularly for high-value compounds, and also has had a massive impact in new enterprises that you can use algae for in the desert. So
Simon, it sounds a little bit crazy to have aquaculture in the desert, algae growth or fish on land. It sounds a little bit crazy.
It does, but I think you have to be a bit crazy to do some of the enterprises that you can find in the desert. You have to have a little bit of what Danny said was chutzpah, and I think Sami has plenty of that.
Stop mentioning our president every second sentence.
I'm only mentioning his lecture.
Growing algae in the desert is the best way that you can imagine, because two things algae need. Algae need water and needs sunshine. Water, fortunately, algae can grow in seawater. They can grow in 2-3 times double concentration of seawater. So actually, desert is the best place to grow microalgae.
So Sami, let's hear the presentation when you're saying this, and later on the public can ask questions. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, welcome to the Microalgal Biotechnology Laboratory. My name is Professor Sami Busiba, and I was heading the group for the last 20 years. Basically, we are operating like a center researching algal research. And our idea is to use brackish water, which is abundant in the desert, with plenty of sunshine to produce algae and their co-product. During the last year, we have been successfully operating, and we have been proud to operate one of the biggest photobioreactors in the world in Kibbutz Ktura, where they produce a very lubricant pigment by the name of astaxanthin. This pigment is very demanded, and it's wide spread, and it costs very much, around $15,000. But of course, we did other things as well. We have been searching spirulina for a long time as well, and also we have been able to develop a very important product from this alga, spirulina. It's phycocyanin from spirulina. It's a blue color, wonderful color. Today it's used mainly for food colorant. And together with that, the lab has been now activated in other fields. We have been signing recently a contract with a company by the name of Yemoja to develop omega-3 fatty acid, omega-6 fatty acid, and this fatty acid is called DGLA. It's a very good anti-inflammatory agent. So basically, as you see, the lab is doing basic research, but also applied research. And our major goal and our major target is to develop this kind of technology in the desert area, where, as I said, there is plenty of brackish water, and full of sunshine. So this is actually what algae need to grow and to develop, and actually we are fulfilling the dream of Ben-Gurion. Let's say, come to the Arava, come to the Negev, and fulfill it with your dreams and your activities. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Sami. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
So, Sami, you really convinced me that I need to grow some algae in my backyard. I have a lot of sunshine, I have saline water, and I can produce maybe oil out of it and put it in my car. What do you think?
No, this is the most stupid idea that you may have. Because anything that you can produce from this algae are much more valuable than to put it into your car. So actually, I didn't talk about the possibility that microalgae can target something about this food crisis that we have. These organisms are full of protein, and imagine that they can grow in the desert with a lot of saline water and produce high and good value protein like spirulina, which has about 60% protein. So I think algae are not the solution, but probably will be part of the solution. So not burning it totally, no, not at all. Just try to extract these pigments, this antioxidant, this fatty acid, and you have a very good big treasure. Not to burn it into your car. This is that it's stupid to do it.
Sami, I have a question for you as well, especially for people who are viewing and don't know about your work with the astaxanthin. How do you actually get the algae to produce astaxanthin? And I know that in addition to the applied research that you've done a lot of basic research as well on the lipid droplets that accumulate the astaxanthin. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, this is actually very, very simple. Like all life, people which live in the desert, an organism who live in the desert are sometimes exposed to stress. And stress could be too much light or some nutrient deficiency. So actually this wonderful algae, which is called Haematococcus, is a green algae. But when you expose this green algae to a lot of sunshine, actually what it is doing, it's producing a pigment which acts as an umbrella to protect the chloroplast for the damaging effect of heavy light. So actually this is exactly what we are operating in Kibbutz Ktura, the production of astaxanthin. It is a green algae exposed to sunshine. And of course, Ktura and in the Arava, we have the most extension of gradients in the world. And we have 364 days full of sunshine. And this is exactly what you need to turn the algae from green to red. So this is exactly tailor-making our organism to the condition in the desert.
I have one more question, and Esther, there's another question that's come in. I have one more question for you, Sami. In that, so when you have this type of closed system where you're growing the algae, which obviously you produce this agro-technology as well, what happens if you get infections within the system, fungal infections or bacterial infections? How can you deal with something like that?
Well, Simon, I see that you know things behind the scene.
A little bit.
Yes. Well, one of the major issues growing microalgae in large scale is contamination. And nobody can tell you, even if we grow it in closed system, maybe not comparable to open raceways. I don't know if you see what is open raceway. It's actually the big basin in which algae are growing and circulating. So now you take this kind of algae, you put it in a glass tubes, which is more or less protecting from the bad environment, and you say you are safe. But this is not true. And even in Ktura, the major problem that we have is contamination by fungi, which actually can even kill the old production in 1 or 2 days. So we have managed, fortunately, the last years to solve this problem using some friendly natural patents that we have developed, that we can actually kill the fungi and leave the algae live freely and happily. So this is really a big annoying. And as I said, the big problem growing algae is always contamination. And I think we have been successful in targeting this bad issue in our system.
Right, Simon, do you have anything from the people around? Some questions?
I'm just looking. I can't see anything in the chat at the moment. No, We don't.
Okay.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you very much, Sami.
Thank you very much. So let's go for the chopped Israeli salad. Yeah, what do we have in this salad? Simon, tell me.
Well, the salad that we have in the morning, right? And in the evening. So we have, what do we have? We have tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, some onion, olive oil, lemon. Have I left anything out?
Salt and pepper.
Salt and pepper.
Okay.
So we're actually going to see a nice bowl of it now. Yeah, there you go. Delicious. So we're going to hear from Dr. Yuval Kay now from the Ramat Negev Research and Development Center. Now, Naftali, do you want to say a few words about this center?
Oh, this is an excellent center that actually in this center, the farmers are coming and looking at all the technologies that they are producing there, but also the academia can come to this center, and this is a great meeting point between the farmers and the academia. Sometimes we will put some experiment there, and the farmers or the researchers from the R&D center will help us, and it's a great meeting point. It's a great way to deliver some knowledge from the academia to agriculture and support the agriculture.
Fantastic. So why don't we hear from some of the work that Dr. Yuval Kay has been doing in the Ramat Negev Research and Development?
Yeah, one of the nice things that they are doing there, actually, all those vegetables that we are looking at, they are producing them in the winter with relatively, when in the winter in Israel, it's not so cold, we can produce inside greenhouses, net houses, we can produce those vegetables, while in Europe, it's very hard during those times.
Hello, my name is Dr. Yuval Kay. I'm a plant physiologist. 2 years ago, I came back from Stanford University in the US and joined the Ramat Negev R&D station, the Agro Research Center. Here, we are working in order to find solutions for problems that the farmers of Ramat Negev have. And one of the biggest problems is a virus, the TBRFV, that was found in Israel in 2014 and spread all over Israel and all over the world, and is causing a lot of problems for the tomato plants. Tomato plants that are catching the virus, that are affected by the virus, their immune system is jeopardized, and a lot of fungi and bacteria can attack the plants. So in order to find solutions for the farmers, we joined forces, Dr. Omer Frenkel from the Volcani Center, and Dr. Fivonia from the Arava Center. And we designed experiments in order to find solutions for the farmers. In 2015 and 16, farmers lost around 30 to 50% of the plant because of the effect of the virus and fungi, which is called Fusarium solani. So in the first stage of this experiment of the project, we found a chemical that helped the plants cope with the Fusarium. And in the second part of the experiment, this experiment that we're doing here, we searched for rootstocks that are more resistant to the Fusarium solani. And in 2 years, this project was a big success because we found a number of varieties that were much more resistant to the Fusarium solani. And by this, we decreased the mortality of the tomato plants from 50% that was in 2015-16 to around 8% or even less in the 2019-2020 season. So this project we consider as a big success. We found a solution for the farmers. Thank you.
So Yuval, I believe you're with us, right?
Yes, hi.
If you want to unmute. Great. Yuval, do we have, while we're waiting for any questions to come in, I have a question for you. You said in the movie that the virus itself perturbs or disturbs the plant's immune system, and that allows secondary infections to come in. Does the virus itself have any effect on the plant apart from, does it actually kill the plant itself, or is it only the secondary infections that are doing that?
Usually the plants don't die from the virus, although they are getting really, really thin and weak. And then also not only the biotic, but also the abiotic stress is causing to the decrease of up to 30% compared to previous seasons or before the virus was found in Israel. The production was much higher even before the fungi. It's not only the fusarium. We focus on the fusarium, but it's also the pythium and other fungi. They are totally killing the plants, and then there is no, even the damage is even stronger. And
does it only attack tomatoes, this virus, or does it attack other crops as well?
No, this is a tomato, but it can. It was found in other plants, but as it's in a latentic form. It's not like it was even found in herbs that are around the greenhouses. So yeah. Sorry?
Yuval, you mentioned in your presentation, you mentioned grafting of vegetables for a biotic stress, the fungi. And I'm familiar with the grafting of trees, but can you say something about grafting of vegetables for other stresses?
Yeah, so in tomatoes and in other vegetables, grafting is it's a way of the farmers to grow plants which have root stocks, or the root part is strong, resistant to pathogens, and even can take up in a better way the water and the minerals, and the scion have the fruits that we like, or the fruits that are with high quality. And the thing is, so it's common and widely used in vegetable growing, grafting. The thing is that this project affected thousands of farmers that in 2 years changed their procedure. They used in the past they used different rootstocks, and for me it was amazing to see that in 2 years I could affect the whole tomato field and industry by doing this applied science. And now we are only in the second stage. The third stage will be applying the resistant varieties that was found by Dani Zamir and by other researchers, which are now applying these varieties. And we hope that in a few years we won't have this problem of the TBRFV.
Okay.
Another collaborator was Aviv Dubromsky that found this virus.
Yuval, thank you very much. We will move to our next presenter that gave us the sea bean salads.
This is a very salty very salty vegetable, Salicornia and Sarcocornia. So we're going to be hearing from Professor Moshe Sagi from the Jacob Blaustein Institutes for Desert Research. In Professor Sagi's lab, he works both on naturally salt-tolerant plants, salt-tolerant crops, halophytes, and of course this is particularly important because then we can irrigate with highly saline water if we need to. Professor Sagi is also a plant molecular biologist, and he has been examining both the molecular and biochemical pathways involved in plant nutrition, in particular in sulfur nutrition. So, Naftali,
this is exactly what Sami mentioned, I think, in the previous conversation, taking the bad saline water and making it good for somebody. Yes, exactly. Here it's for the halophyte that they like salty water.
So let's hear from Moshe.
We are at the Ramat Negev Experimental Station, where University of Ben Gurion makes the development of research. Ramat Negev, similar to many arid and semi-arid areas, are characterized by limited access to fresh water, but has the access to saline water. Most crops are glycophytic, sensitive to saline water. We have here saline water, dune soil, and sun. So these three things are very important for developing new crops. My lab has pioneered the development of allophytic crops in Israel, particularly high-value Salicornia and Sarcocornia that can employ even seawater for the growth. We identified and selected local ecotype and developed the agrotechnique for growing this high nutritional quality sea vegetable for export. Local farmers from the Dead Sea to Ramat Negev are growing this crop profitably. Yet there is much more to be improved. Our cultivated Salicornia, for example, is susceptible to soil-borne disease, whereas the Sarcocornia is growing very slow in the winter when there is the high demand for export. Therefore, new crops must be located and screened for pathogen resistant and yet as well as nutritional important compound. We have already identified additional new ecotypes from different locations in Israel and are in the process of growing them for screening. Soon we hope that we will have new ecotypes to test here in this place to see which of the ecotypes can substitute the local Sarcocornia. We are also using our research knowledge internationally. We are currently involved in a EU-funded multinational project based in India. This project aims to use the brine reject from desalinated water to grow Salicornia and Sarcocornia as cash crop for the local farmers.
Wow, it's very interesting. Gizi, are you here?
Yes, I am here.
Okay.
Excellent.
Excellent.
So, Naftali, I have a question, but if you want to start.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So, Gizi, I was wondering about when they're actually growing these crops in the desert, what are the sort of salt concentrations that these crops can stand? And I assume you don't irrigate with undiluted saline or brackish water because then you'll get buildup of salts in the soil. So how much can they concentrate and what is the sort of actual concentrations that they actually irrigate with?
So actually Salicornia and Sarcocornia can survive on sea level water. On salinity level of 100 to 300 millimolar sodium chloride, it can generate actually between 15 to 30 ton per dunum. It means 15 and 30 kilogram per square meter. But Salicornia, surprisingly, can also grow not very bad on 4 decisiemens, which is about 40 millimolar sodium chloride, but the best is, as I said, 100 to 300 millimolar sodium chloride.
And the actual, some halophytes, they can only grow when you add, or they grow best when you add salt. Some halophytes actually still grow better in non-saline water. What about Salicornia? What happens if you grow it in non-saline water, and how does that then affect the taste and the nutrient quality?
Non-saline water can cause some bitterness, and if you have successive cuts, plants will not survive. We were trying this one. It can grow only with sodium chloride. When we try to substitute with potassium chloride, again, it didn't survive. So this is what we can do, actually.
So it really is an obligate halophyte. It has to have salt in order to survive.
Yes, improving the performance with increasing halophyte. So this is a classic halophyte.
Gizi, is it only Salicornia and Sarcocornia, or there are other plants that are you're growing?
We were growing Aster tripolium before, Portulaca oleracea, and more halophytes. Salicornia is actually our best success at this moment, but we are hoping that also Portulaca will enter as a vegetable with high omega-3. By the way, Salicornia also has high content of omega-3 and antioxidants.
And what sort of...
In other plants, we have problems with high salinity with the nutrient uptake, mainly of nitrate. Yes, do you have the similar problem in Salicornia, Sarcocornia?
We didn't check the competition of nitrate and salinity. We didn't check, it was to check, but we don't have any problem when we are giving nutrition. Let's say if we are talking about 20-20-20, the classic nutrient, it is 1 gram per liter, goes very well.
And Gizi, what sort of prices does Salicornia fetch in when you're going to buy it, or in the market?
The consumer may pay 100 shekel per kilogram, talking about foreigner money. This is what, and people are buying it and paying for this. Although, in my opinion, it is not very tasty, just salty. But there are people that are crazy on this. Let's say, I will not say the word.
So Simon, I need to increase the price of this salad in our restaurant. It's not so expensive now, so I need to increase the price.
Absolutely. So add a little bit of Salicornia, Sarcocornia. We'll charge a little bit more for the dish. Absolutely.
By the way, the poor farmers are getting only 20% of this price.
Wow.
So Simon, let's go for our. Thank you, Gizi.
You are
Let's
welcome.
go to our next presenter that will give us pita. We need some pita. After all, we are in the Mediterranean. We need to eat
Absolutely.
pita.
Let's do it.
So we have Veretzin.
So as you saw from what Yuval was saying, it's not just abiotic stresses which are an important problem in the desert. It's also biotic stresses, whether it be viruses or bacteria or fungi, or in the case that we're going to be talking about now is insects. And Dr. Veretzin from the Jacob Blaustein Institutes for Desert Research, she researches plant and insect interactions, particularly how each organism affects the biochemistry and the molecular the molecules of each organism, of each other. Let's hear from Vered.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Veretzin. I'm a scientist here at the Desert Institute. My lab study plant protection, how plants and insects interact. Approximately 20% of the crops are lost due to insect damage. This is a huge amount of food that we are not using to feed humanity. So today, farmers are using chemicals, mainly strong chemicals, to help the plants to be more resistant. However, these chemicals are not sustainable to the environment, and also insects have a short life cycle, meaning they can evolve or develop resistant mechanism quite fast. So what scientists are doing today is to really study the natural defense mechanism, what the chemicals and the responses that plants are using to be stronger. So in our lab, we studied different crops like tomato, wheat, and others, and we studied the chemistry. What is this special chemistry that plants are using to be more resistant? One of these mechanisms is smell. Apparently, plants, when they got attacked by insect or by herbivores, they change their chemistry, they emitted smell to the atmosphere. And the purpose of this smell is to attract natural enemies. These natural enemies are predator or parasitoids that feed on the prey, meaning the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Here, for example, you can see how we can tell which plant is more attractive to the natural enemy. We're introducing two plants, one from the left and from the right, and we're just collecting the smell through this tube. So it's running to the tubes, and then we put a natural enemy in this white tube. It's a Y-shaped tube, and we let it choose whether to go left or right. And this decision is only based on the smell. So what we are doing, we are growing different plants under different conditions, different genetics, and using mutants to really identify the specific smell. What else we are doing with this knowledge is to develop a biosensor. This is a collaborative project with me and another lab at the Desert Institute. And this chip, this biosensor will be a small device that farmers can be used in their field or in the greenhouse to really monitor the time of infestation. And why it is important? Because the time for monitoring, the time that the process are start is critical for farmers to know when to take an action, whether to wait or to apply chemicals or to introduce biocontrol. So eventually it can save money, it can give us more food, and it can be economic for the farmers and for the population.
Great. Vered, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent, excellent. Vered, I have two questions for you, if it's okay. You talked about the smell or the volatiles that the plants emit that attract other insects. I don't know if you've managed to isolate any of the actual compounds, but do they have any structural similarity to pheromones? That's one question. And the second question I wanted to ask you is, you talked about these biosensors that can detect smell in order to monitor infestations. Can you tell us a little bit about more how that works? I understand that that's a collaborative project with Dr. Mohammed Bashuti.
Yes. So we are studying molecules that are plant-based. So we are looking for the compounds that emitted by the plants. It's true that insects emitted pheromones for their mating, for their interaction, but we are not focusing on pheromones. We decided to really exploit the change of the profile of the plants. It's like scientists using even canines, like dogs, to identify the fungi on the soil, or even citrus greening, which is a big disease in citrus. So we're using the same concept, but instead of training dogs, we are training this small device that will teach it how to identify the specific molecules that emitted to the air. So we're looking on compounds that release to the air after 6 hours from infestation. And we study, we can tell that even one mite on a single leaf can change the profile of the smell, of the volatiles. So we really try to detect it as fast as we can. And as for the second question, so yes, it is a collaborative project. Mohammed Bashuti is expert in surfaces, like to teach surfaces to identify molecules. So he's developing this small device that will be based on change in not electricity, it will be photo, it's called, anyway.
Electrical.
And then the device can tell whether the compounds are there or not, and the intensity. So he said that it can be out to ppb, parts per billions. Very sensitive, much more sensitive than the machines that we are using. We are using GCMS, we can see parts per millions. The device can be very, very sensitive.
So Vered, let's talk 1 second about the pita. I need some products to make this pita. And I know that you are involved in an interesting project that is related to old varieties of wheat. Can you say something about it?
So in wheat, we actually not study volatiles, we study the defense metabolites that are present in the wheat. And what we are doing, actually, we are going to the progenitors of the bread wheat, what we call the white emmer wheat. This is the ancestor, one of the progenitors. So what we are doing, we're exploiting the natural diversity of the wild emmer wheat, because we believe that the wild emmer harbor traits that are not exploited. So they may be more resistant to pathogen and to insect, because the breeding process was toward more getting more seeds, bigger grains, not shattering grains. So the breeding process was very directed. And we are looking for traits that may be left behind. So what we are trying to do is to find markers that associate with defense and suggest for breeders what will be a good resistant to introduce to cultivated or to elite wheat. So to go to the history, to the ancients, and bring it back to get a better wheat, a more resistant wheat.
So Vera, thank you very much. I can make my pita now, but I need some olive oil for this pita. Let's see who will bring me my olive oil.
Thanks, Vered.
Thank you.
For the olive oil, we choose two places. One of them is coming from Pedro Berliner, Professor Pedro Berliner. Professor Pedro Berliner is an emeritus professor from the Ben Gurion University, and he's studying for many years the rainwater harvesting systems that he can grow plants, in this case olives, only on rainwater harvesting, without irrigation, without drip irrigation. You will not find any drippers in his field, usually. And also, between the plants, Pedro made a very interesting way to grow annuals, like corn or wheat. And together with the trees, you can grow annuals, and it is more productive, both for water and both for land. Of course, this way for growing is not really the way that farmers in Israel are growing. However, farmers in many other places, less developed, are when the irrigation water is not around. This is really an interesting way of growing in the desert.
Naftali, I believe this is also an ancient technique, right, from the Nabatean. So Pedro has actually been bringing ancient into the modern world.
Sure, but then you need to optimize the system, to use models, to use many techniques to make it happen in the modern world.
Exactly.
Let's see, Pedro.
We are here in the middle of the Negev. My name is Pedro Berliner from the Blaustein Institute for Desert Research, and what we have developed here is a technique based on the old Nabatean techniques. If you look around here, sir, you will see a very dry area where nothing is growing at the moment. However, during winter, during which most of the rainfall falls, which incidentally is a total annual of 100 millimeters, 4 inches, practically no water. When the rainfall comes, it's usually not absorbed by the soil due to the properties of the type of soil we have here. And it flows from the surrounding hills into the lower lying areas, into the dry riverbed, and flows by gravity into the general direction of the Mediterranean. While it flows, we divert part of the water with a very simple channel into a plot like the one I'm standing in. These plots are surrounded by trenches which ensure that the water is not flowing outside of the plot. The water stands within the plot. In our case, it's around 40 centimeters depth of water. This water percolates slowly into the soil. It usually takes us within a day or two, and the water disappears from the soil surface. This water, which is stored in the soil, is then used up by the trees during the long summer, which lasts from April till October. And by the end of this dry period, these olive trees, which you can see around myself, are full
of olive fruits, which will be used in order to make oil, and they are a staple food in the Mediterranean. We have thus managed in an area which receive a meager 100 millimeters of rainfall to produce yields which are comparable to those that are obtained in areas in which the precipitation is 500, 600 millimeters.
Thank you. Pedro, are you here?
Yes.
Pedro, are you here?
I am.
Ah, excellent. So I have one question, Pedro. Actually, until Naftali just reminded me of the intercropping, I thought that this type of technique would only be for crops, as you just showed in the movie, such as olive trees, others that might have deeper roots that could get to the stored water. But in fact, if you're doing intercropping for things like wheat, these only have shorter roots. So how far is the water actually stored under the soil?
Well, that depends. Usually, if we a very rough rule of thumb, if we had 500 millimeters, we expect it to be more or less 2 meters. So if you've got 2 floods, we can wet up to around 4 meters of soil. This means that if we've got a shallow rooting crop, like the intercrop, it would take up water from the upper layers, let us say meter, meter and a half. And this would force the tree to take up water from the deeper layers. When we plant the intercrop, this means that less water is lost by direct evaporation to the atmosphere. Instead of evaporating from the soil surface in between the rows of the crop, of the olives, it's taken up by the intercrop. And the net result is that the system of a tree with an intercrop is more efficient than growing the 2 crops separate.
Pedro, do you think that only olive can survive there for this long time without rain, or other crops can do it as well?
Well, we have worked previously with what we call firewood crops. The idea was to produce trees which where the trunk or the branches can be used to provide firewood. This is one of the serious problems in the developing world, the lack of energy in order to cook and heat. And this deforestation leads obviously to desertification. So trees can survive. There are some prosopis trees which produce fruits, and the fruits are a very good source of nourishment for animals in general. And other crops, we haven't tested them, but I assume that they will survive. The yields, however, will depend very much on the water efficiency of the trees.
Okay, Pedro, thank you very much for this presentation. We will move forward because time is running.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro.
So we are still in the Pita and Olive Oil.
So this is becoming an incredibly popular dish that the Last Oasis is serving then?
Yes, but I need more olive oil. I need for every single dish previously that we mentioned, we need a lot of oil. Yes, so I will ask for my friends from Vulcani Center to bring me some oil, olive oil for sure, not other oils, yes? So we have here Dr. Alon Ben-Gal, Arnon Dag, and Dr. Ran Harel, also Dr. Arnon Dag. And those friends are working together and producing from farm to fork, from the soil into the plant, into the canopy, into the flowers, and later on the fruits and the oil. They're looking into all the processes, and it's really interesting project because you can solve serious problems when you have a multidisciplinary work. So Alon Ben-Gal is here, and first we will hear his movie, and later on we will ask him some questions.
So we're right now standing in a research olive orchard of the Vulcani Institute at the Gilat Research Center. The Vulcani Institute is responsible in Israel for applied agricultural research. The Gilat Center is our southern campus, and we're looking more at the edge of the desert and how we can do agricultural research that will eventually then be applied and help our farmers in other places in similar areas be more successful. We're standing in the olives because the olives are what I think are a great example of success story of how we've done scientific research and discovery, and how we brought those discoveries and the things we learned to the farmers, not only of Israel, but of the world in similar environments. Dr. Arnon Dag, who's here with me, is a researcher who focuses on olives. And when he started working on olives, he brought in people from all kinds of other disciplines because he realized that it wasn't enough one discipline. We needed multidisciplinary aspects and point of view to be able to tackle olives. Now, olives are an ancient crop in Israel, but they're a very new crop in the desert. And in order to really handle and to figure out how to be successful with olives in the desert, we knew, Arnon realized that he needed people working on irrigation. That's my specialty. On plant nutrition, that Dr. Ron Arel, who's also with us today, and Dr. Uri Yirmiyahu, who also are involved with this, and need people involved with oil and oil quality and fruit quality and a whole lot of other aspects. Arnon put together an interdisciplinary team. We've become one of the world's leading groups, especially in how to take care of olives and olive orchards in desert conditions, on how to irrigate olives and how to fertilize olives. We have experimental orchards. We work a lot with farmers in their orchards. And Arnon even has an experimental scale olive oil mill where he can take the fruit from the experiments and look at, on the tree scale, at the treatments that we're given and see how they affect the final quality of the oil. Why are we successful? Well, one, we're successful scientifically. I think I've lost count of the number of scientific articles that have been published from the experiments that we've done over the past 10, 15 years. And even more important than that, we already can see the effects of our work on farms and farmers, not just in Israel. We've changed how people fertilize and how people irrigate their olives, and they're being more efficient and they're making more money because they're following the things that we've been able to discover by working together with them. And not only here in Israel and in Israel's desert areas, but throughout the olive growing areas of the world. We're seeing the effects of our work happening actually globally.
So thank you, Alon. Thank you very much. Are you here with us?
I'm here and Arnon's here.
Oh, hello,
Hi, Alon.
Alon.
Hi, Alon.
Hello, Alon. So one question for me is, you mentioned it in your presentation about the research and the multidisciplinary. So for me, every time that I'm trying to do it, I'm trying to publish my work, and it's not easy. It's not easy because where to publish this interdisciplinary work? When I'm going to my soil and irrigation publication, it's not going to be conceived so well. So how do you do it?
Arnon, you want to take that?
You will take it, Alon.
So it just has worked for us. It's the right combination of the right people. We have good chemistry together. I think we all realize that by doing interdisciplinary work, we're making a much more bigger effect than what any of us would do if we were just working by ourselves. And so we're willing to deal with those issues of the difficulties that come, whether that's in publication or whether that's in as we're looked at as in our careers. But I think we've all benefited from it. I think in the end, it was the right decision, and working that way is the way, especially in applied sciences, especially in agricultural sciences, that we ought to be working.
Alon, I also have I also have a question. I have a question about in the movie, you actually showed that you were checking oil composition and the effects of your changes in irrigation and fertilization on the oil. What were the sort of changes did you find? And was it improving the quality of the oil?
Yeah, olive oil is a little bit similar to wine. You need to expose the tree a little bit to stress. If you over-fertilize or you over-irrigate, the quality parameter will go down. The polyphenols that contribute to the health property, to the gastronomic properties, and to the shelf life will go down sharply if you over-irrigate. If you over-fertilize with nitrogen, you'll have the same negative impact. You'll have increase in free fatty acid level, and you'll have decrease in polyphenol. So we are using more and more the term of precision agriculture, and this is really the case. You need to give enough water and enough fertilizer to produce the maximal yield, but if you over-fertilize and over-irrigate, the quality parameter going down. So you need to be very precise.
Thank you. I think we unfortunately we don't have any more time for more questions, although we would like to ask more. So we have to move on because we are running short of time. So.
Okay, our next presenter is Eran Rave, Dr. Eran Rave from the same institute, from Agricultural Research Organization. He's in Gilat Research Center, and he will give us the orange juice. Let's hear Eran right away. Eran is a plant physiologist, and let's hear him.
My name is Eran Rave. I am a citrus physiologist. I'm working here in Gilat Research Station, which is the southern station of the ARO of Israel. Growing citrus under the Negev desert condition is a very complicated task. Usually the soil is very poor, water are limited, and the quality of the water is very low, and they got a lot of salt inside the water. The main problem is that the stress that build up on the trees is building up gradually, and it takes several years before you see any symptoms. And once you see the symptoms, it's already too late. When we do research, usually we got grants for 3 years or 5 years if we are lucky. But in this case, when we grow citrus under the desert, the stress appear only after 7 to 10 years, if at all, and you need to wait a long time before you see the symptoms. Along the years, the trees start to accumulate salt, and they got problem with mineral uptake from the soil. In order to solve this problem, we got different kind of strategies, long-term and short-term strategies. For the short term, we help the farmers to find the way to monitor their soil salinity solution in the farm in order to take decision immediately as the problem started. In the long term, we develop new rootstocks for them or new varieties that can cope with the salinity problem. Yet there is a big issue with the time. It takes us several years, at least 7 to 10 years since we start the research until we come up with solution with new varieties or new rootstocks. And once we got the solution, it might be that the salinity issue is not a problem anymore, as it happened in Israel. In Israel, for example, we irrigated the trees with saline water, and along the years we changed the water into desalinated seawater which got no salt. So we solved the problem of the salt, but now we got another problem, for example, the lack of magnesium in this water. That means that all the issue of growing plants under desert condition, it's very dynamic. When you start with one issue, you can find yourself after several years get into a different problem like lack of magnesium. Recently, we got another issue in the orchard, and this is something that related to the global warming. Temperature goes high, and it's have a very negative effect on the trees. Due to the increase in temperature, we've got more problem in the orchard. We got more issues of fruit splitting like this. We got more problem with seeds. If we develop variety which are seedless, suddenly they produce seeds inside the fruit, and we don't like it at all. And this variety need to go back to the breeder in order to create them seedless again. Another issue is the color. Some of the colors, like the red color that we got in the fruits, need low temperature in order to develop. And if you got high temperature, these fruits will never get into the red color that you prepared for. The important thing to remember is that our growth condition is very dynamic, and problems from the past might not be relevant for the present, and for sure won't be relevant for the future. And we must monitor our crops once in a while to see that everything is okay and they can still produce as much as we need in order to make money out of them.
Wow. So, Eran, are you here?
I'm not sure that Eran is actually here.
Okay.
Eran is in charge of another session.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so we can ask maybe Alon some of the questions related to salinity. I know that you collaborate together in terms of salinity. So, so changing the water quality along the years has increased the salinity in many crops. What happened in citrus?
Citrus is the prime example because a whole lot of the citrus in Israel is irrigated with recycled wastewater. Recycled wastewater, we saw a whole period where we became very efficient with irrigation, and then we moved to wastewater, which was very salty, and the citrus started to become affected negatively by the salinity. But then we started desalinating seawater for our drinking water in the country, and that water then became our recycled wastewater, and the salinity of it started to go down in the mid-2000, 2007, 8, until now. And now the citrus is doing much better again because the water that we're using is much less saline than it used to be.
Alon, is it sodium? Is it chloride? Is it found in the leaves or in the juice?
It's both sodium and chloride. I'm not so sure about the juice. That we'd need to ask Eran. Both sodium and chloride are found accumulating in the leaves when we're exposed to salts with citrus.
Okay, thank you very much, Alon, for presenting the answers. The next one will give us red or white wine. What do you like, red or wine, Alon?
White.
White, okay.
Today white, tomorrow red.
Today white. Professor Aaron Veit.
Yes, so we are going to be hearing from Professor Aaron Veit about an industry that has really flourished in recent years in our area, and that is the viticulture industry, the growing of wine grapes. And Aaron is really one of the leading, or if not the leading, expert on desert viticulture. And he uses not just agro techniques, but also state-of-the-art molecular metabolic profiling also in his research. Naftali, yesterday you were telling me how much water it takes to make a glass of wine that Aaron's holding.
Yes, it's about 80 liters, Simon, 80 liters to produce one glass of wine. And it's about the shower that we will make in the evening. So what do you prefer, Simon, a shower or a glass of wine?
I prefer the wine. My wife would probably prefer that I had a shower.
I will take half and half.
Okay. So let's hear from Aaron.
From the desert to the bottle. That is our vision. That is our main goal. The laboratory works already 10 years, more than 10 years, on desert viticulture. How grapevine grow and produce in a desert environment. What are the best varieties? What are the best strategies to have quality of fruits and of the product, which is wine? Why should we grow vineyards in the desert? Because this is a kind of environment that can actually support vine growth and supported vine growth for thousands of years. Today, the Israeli Negev highlands are really a focal point of the wine industry, of the boutique wine industry in Israel. It started somewhere between 20 to 30 years ago, but actually it is in the past 10 years that desert wine or desert viticulture really got shaped. Our laboratory interacts with the farmers and the other agronomists to help and produce better wines. The research involves high technology like metabolite profiling, GCMS, UPLCMS, where we screen the chemical components of the wine and of the fruits, and we try to see how the treatments or the strategies that we applied in the field can affect the chemical components of the wine and the fruit. And therefore, then we go back to the farmers or to our colleagues, and we share and integrate their experience, their measurement, to get a more holistic view of how vine respond to the environment where we live in.
Okay, thank you very much. Aaron, are you here?
Yeah, I am.
Excellent. Aaron, I have a question for you. Aaron, I know.
Wait, before you have a question, I have a comment.
Okay.
Just on a menu of an Englishman and an Israeli one, can wine come last?
What can I tell you? That's why I left England, right?
Yes. Go with your.
So yeah, Aaron, I know that you've done quite a lot of work trying to change the microclimate around the grape, and some of this work that you've done has actually been implemented in the field. Could you just say a little bit about that?
Yes. We started to see on the bunches in the field, on the grape berries, light induced scars or browning of the fruits. And this is really a bad sign of too much radiation on the fruits. Now, unfortunately, in Israel, the practices from Ramat HaGolan to Ramat HaNegev were very, very similar for the past 30 years. And only recently, farmers together with the R&D in Ramat Negev and myself, our laboratory and Ariel University, we started to challenge these concepts that is a European concept that you should grow wine on a vertical shoot pruning, right? Where the bunches are actually totally exposed to a light radiation. So what we did, we collaborated with a farmer, with a vineyard, and we started to change the architecture of the vine in order that it could shade on the fruits and do some sort of natural protection. We did that also with synthetic nets, plastic nets, but actually the results are really, really nicely coming out when we use the natural shading. And this was a success. First of all, because scientifically we proved that by changing and adapting the architecture of the plant, we could really get a better and more balanced fruit chemistry. And second, because today, for instance, one winery, one of the best winery, I guess we have, Nana Estate Winery in Mitzpe Ramon, is actually changing many of its varieties to the architecture of growth that we suggested, that our study suggests.
Amazing. Well, again, we're running out of time, Aaron, so that's unfortunately the only question we have time for, but thank you very, very much. What do we have next on our menu? We're coming to desserts.
Desserts. I like
desserts. That's, yeah, look at that.
From Nomi Telsu, Professor Nomi Telsu.
Looks delicious. What's it made of, Naftali?
So pitaya, it's a very interesting fruit that is coming from vine cacti. It's a succulent that is grown now in the Negev desert. It's excellent for water use efficiency because it's a camp plant. And actually it closes its stomata during daytime and open only during nighttime, which is improving water use efficiency.
So we're going to hear from Professor Nomi Telsor from Jacob Blaustein Institutes for Desert Research as well. Nomi has been involved for many years in introducing new crops into the desert, particularly focusing, as Natalie mentioned, on cacti, on the pitaya, but also on fruit trees such as the Chinese date. So let's hear from Nomi.
Okay, some problems.
So Natalie, stop sharing and then come back in maybe.
I am Professor Nomi Telsor. I'm working on breeding, cytogenetic and molecular tools in order to develop dryland agriculture. In my lab, we focus only on perennial fruit crops, those that can cope with extreme dryland conditions. One of the species that we are working for many years in my lab are the group of Ilocereus species, the pitaya, the dragon fruit, those that belong to the Cactaceae family and can grow under very, very extreme conditions of drought and high temperature. The aim of my work is develop not only pitaya and dragon fruit, to develop other plant species that are intrinsically adapted to dryland conditions. In view of the global warming, I believe that this is the achievement of, or the purpose of our work, to select, improve plant species, those that can cope with extreme high temperature and dryland conditions, and in this way to offer a better life quality to farmers around the world.
Thank you, Nomi. Nomi, are you here with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Ah, hello.
Hi, Nomi, how are you?
Even if my connection is very, very bad, I'm here. We can try to talk.
Naftali, you have a question?
What a great color for the pitaya. Why I cannot buy it in the market?
You can buy them. You need to find a way.
No, Nomi, I was wondering, you already have a plant which is tolerant to desert conditions, a cactus, right? So what are the traits that you are looking for to breed?
Okay, those plants belong to the Cactaceae family, and then they use, if we compare with other crops in the Negev, they need about 10% of the water that need other crops like citrus, for example. But this plant comes from a tropical area, okay? They don't have a good root system because they don't need too much water, but they don't really are able to grow under very extreme high temperature. During the last years, we focused our research trying to identify those hybrids that can grow also in the Arava and close to Eilat area where the temperatures there are during the summer about 40, 43 degrees every day. And in this way, we try to find those plants that in addition that produce good fruit quality, they can cope with the summer temperature in those very extreme areas.
Thank you, Nomi. Again, unfortunately, we don't have too much time, so we're going to have to move on to our final part of the menu. And of course, if you had a good meal in the last Oasis restaurant, you have to have a nice cup of tea to allow you to digest what you've just eaten. But of course, tea is not just a great soothing drink for digestion, it also has many compounds in it, which are important for health. And we're going to be hearing from Dr. Rivki Ophir, who has spent many years looking at desert plants and trying to look for compounds within desert plants that are very beneficial for human health and can be used for medical applications. So Rivki, let's hear from Rivki.
My name is Rivki Ophir. I live in the Arava in Moshav Chatzeva. In my lab, I decided to screen desert plants for their activity against human diseases. I collected 250 plants from Eilat to the Dead Sea. I prepare extract from these plants in various solvents, and I screen them against model for disease. This time I will talk about 3 models: cancer like lymphoma and breast cancer, brain disease like Alzheimer and Parkinson, and healthy aging like healthy aging. We prepare the extract, and after screening, we try to find the active molecules that do the job. With cancer, I made the screen with my student Zainab Taya from Jordan, and we found that Astricus gravelans have a nice compound that can kill cancer cells in a very unique method. They activate apoptosis, which is the programmed cell death. With Anat Elman from Mulkani Institute and Yoel Cashman from Tel Aviv University, we studied 2 plants, Achillea fragmentosa and Pulicaria incisa, and we found that they have compounds that prevent toxicity to neurons. By that, maybe we can combat brain diseases, which are their phenotype is regarding inflammation. In my 3rd model, which is healthy aging, I try to find compounds that will inhibit the process which is called senescence, namely cells produce toxic proteins that make harm to many organs in the body. While doing this research, I realized that there is something interesting like the wisdom of the desert, which is called desert chemotype. There are metabolomes that is related to stress. And we found that when we cultivate the same plant in irrigation and fertilization condition, the plant shut down various synthesis pathways. On the other hand, in the desert condition, there are many pathways which are activated by 5 to 100-fold as compared to irrigation, to the cultured plants. This means that we need to learn desert wisdom and try to generate protocols how to cultivate desert plants in such a way that we can have the good compound in a amount and in a quality that can help human diseases. On the other hand, by this way, we shall keep the genetic and the genotype and the chemotype of the desert in case of desertification and in case these plants will be vanished because of desertification. So basically, we are coming to the conclusion that the wisdom of desert is so important, and because 10% of the plant is metabolite and many of them can be helpful to human in terms of combating human disease or helping us to grow agriculture in a safer manner, we really want to keep doing it as much as possible. I think the project is based on the hypothesis that a desert plant survive harsh conditions of irradiation, not enough water, salt, etc. And basically, probably they are producing important compound that even our imagination is unable to produce. And I think our research really shows that the hypothesis is correct. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Rivki. Are you here?
Rivki, I can see you, but I can't hear you.
So you need to unmute, maybe.
You need to unmute yourself.
I'm here. I'm here.
Hi, Rivki. How are you?
Quiet.
So, Rivki, I have a place in my balcony, but I can put only one plant. Which plant you recommend to put there? The best plant from the desert, or not from the desert?
Paroshit galonit. It is the paroshit galonit. Is the white, the yellow, nice plants that you can drink the tea of it, and feel that your aging will be safe and good.
Okay,
Rivki,
I'm running to do it.
I want to ask you also a question. Have any of the compounds that you've identified, have any of them actually been clinically tested?
No, not yet. I was not successful to persuade any company to join me for such a project. We have few patents sitting in the Vulcani Institute, but for some reason we are unable to really make them lead to drugs, unfortunately. Yes.
Do you need to check it only on people, or you can check it on animals, or something in between?
Only with one plant I started, because one farmer from Enyav decided that he wanted to really do something serious. So we are now checking it in preclinical studies. It's called in mice in Chovot, in a company, and hopefully this will be the first one, and I will continue with the others. But it's just money, question of money, because I think there are so many secrets and treasures that I just need to be better in collecting the money.
Rivki, thank you so much. We're going to have to wrap up now. So Naftali, if you can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So we're going to really wrap up now, and I just want to say that you can see from on the left of this slide what we would, and from the movies that you've seen, you can see that how the research, the technology, the extension services are really there to help support some of our amazing growers, and how important this is to support the growers. I also want to say just a few words about the growers. So a couple of years ago, I made a movie called Agriculture in the Negev, Today's Desert Pioneers. And you can see that movie on the VOD part of the DDD app. And one of the things I learned about growers is that they really are incredible people. And what do I mean by that? Well, growers are not just amazing people who are growers. They also have to be so many other things. They have to be scientists, they have to be engineers, business people, entrepreneurs, and they have to show quite a lot of daring and bravery, particularly if they're going to come and set up an enterprise in the desert. They also, not just farmers in the desert, but anywhere around the world, they really have to be willing to take risks, whether they're coming into the desert to make an enterprise or whether they're looking for new crops. They really have to be risk takers. And together, the growers, the research, the technology, the extension services have allowed us to serve you in the last oasis all these wonderful food products. And as you can see from that picture, we have already become an amazingly profitable enterprise. Naftali and I were also talking a couple of days ago about the fact that so many years ago, decades ago, people never really believed that you could grow crops in a sustainable and profitable way in the desert. Naftali,
not only this, we can export from our desert, export knowledge, and also export products to Europe and to other places, which is really amazing. And also we can have pretty sustainable ways to produce this food, nutritious food with high quality, high antioxidant and polyphenols and others, with low concentration of bad friends, microorganisms, viruses, and other compounds, bad compounds. And it's all coming from our hands, the growers, the research, the extension service.
Right, but you know, for years we were speaking about this, that many people didn't believe this could happen. If you can go to the next slide. And if it reminded you and I of an amazing quote by our first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion, whose vision was to develop the Negev and to develop technologies in the Negev, not just for Israel, but for the whole world. And he said that if an expert says it can't be done,
So Simon, I think that the expert, if it cannot be done,
you have to find another expert, exactly. And I think if you can,
you will find him somewhere.
Exactly, and I think if you just go to the next click, I think that we've seen from the movies that our researchers that you've seen from the different institutes are people who do not believe that it can't be done. They believe that anything can be done, and I think they also believe that for the sake of humanity, it must be done. So
we don't need to find other experts, we have you.
We have all these experts, exactly, we have all these experts here. And I'd just like to wrap up by thanking all the speakers and all the people who appeared in the movies. Thank the people who helped us make the movie, the conference organizers, the people who've been watching, and Naftali, as usual, it's been a blast preparing this and doing this with you.
So hopefully, Simon, next conference, we will open a real restaurant that we can really taste this wonderful food, because right now I cannot eat pixels or only the screen, or eating my head or something like this, or eating your head. So, let's go home and eat real food.
Okay, Naftali. Fine, so thank you very much. And yeah, thank you. And I hope that everybody has a continuation of an excellent conference.
Thank you very much, all.
Thank you very much. It was lovely.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, thank you.